All righty. Wow. Well, we are on our fourth podcast here. Welcome to the Main Street Exchange. We got me, Stephen Mirabal, Micah, and our guest, Jamie Church, here from a local Chamber of Commerce here in Farmington. It's the Farmington Chamber of Commerce. And so we're so glad that you came to join us today.
Yeah, thank you.
And as I was just telling you a little bit ago, this podcast really is for the small business owner that they're in the trenches.
Right.
They're in the trenches of doing what they can to do what they love, working, feeding their families, and growing their businesses. And so I wanted to be able to really dive into really the role of chambers and communities. We know that they're the backbone
Yes.
of Main Street America, really, Chamber of Commerce is. And also a little bit of your backstory, because I wanted to be able to give some clarity and some direction to people who feel like they have certain giftings.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know where to place them. Maybe they're altruistic. Maybe it's all these different angles that I think, if I say so myself, embodies in Jamie Church just this true, genuine spirit for the community. She didn't know I was going to say all these things about her.
Yes, I know.
But
I'm blushing. But keep going, Stephen.
But the thing is I do think that successful chambers have successful people running them.
Yes.
Okay. And I mean, I don't want to throw too many stones. There's a lot of people doing some great work, but there's also communities really suffering because of poor leadership.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's no way around that, because I would say the fervor that you bring in our community is very unique. And so I want to be able to share some of those qualities and characteristics that have driven you to make such a successful chamber in Farmington. And so let's just kind of start with, are there some other things you kind of wanted to cover today too with chambers and networking?
Absolutely. Networking, obviously. We want to talk about the benefits of that and your experience with that and some of the success stories. We'd love to hear some of that. So we'll just kind of start off and
tell us the Jamie backstory and what made you into this, I would say, an entrepreneur spirit running our chamber. And so give us a little bit about your backstory.
I will. So before I became the CEO of the chamber in 2019, I was on the board of directors of the chamber. Prior to that, I had worked for a local nonprofit agency here in Farmington. So I had a lot of experience, 12 years of experience in reaching out to donors and supporters of that nonprofit, and always had a strong sense that I would never hesitate to ask a donor to support an agency or somebody to join the chamber, because if I believe in it, I have no problem asking other people to support it.
Yeah.
So the nonprofit I was working for, I believed in strongly, and I believe very strongly in chambers. Yeah. And my own personal story and why I finally put my resume out for this job at the chamber was because my dad was a business owner in Durango, Colorado. Okay. And that's where I was raised. That's where I grew up, was in Durango. And my dad had a business.
I knew that, but I didn't know that your dad was an entrepreneur too.
Yes.
Okay.
So my dad had a business it started in our home called Southwest Camera Repair, which you guys will relate to with all the photos and all the stuff.
Your dad was a camera repair guy?
Yes. And my dad.
Oh my God, I'm going to nerd out.
I know. So he started in our home in repairing tourists' cameras, because no kid, I'm not even joking about this. They would be on the train, the Durango Silverton train, and there's a great shot as the train comes around the bend. If you lean far enough out, you can get that engine, but then they would drop their cameras and they'd have to stop the train, and they'd get the camera, and then they'd take them to my dad and he would fix them. Oh. So this is a long time ago. This is like in the 1970s. This is a long, long time ago. Anyway, he also did film processing, which nobody does anymore. And then
art. It's really an art.
Yeah. So he did video production. He had a business, and it eventually became something called Western Audio Visual in the West Building.
Okay.
And I wish I could tell you this story has a happy ending.
Oh, no.
It does not. So my dad's business was struggling, and he was just about to lose his business. And I was young. I was just married, actually, Stephen. I had just had Spencer, my oldest son. So I was all very, wrapped up in having a baby. But sadly enough, the stress of it, he actually had a heart attack and died in his office in the West Building, right there. At the stress, I think, of knowing that the business, he was going to lose it. Mm-hmm. So at that time, I said I would never, ever own a small business. I mean, it literally killed my dad. But I had the opportunity to advocate for small businesses. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about the chamber, because I see that it's not just, hey, look at our cool sign or look what we do. It is people's lives. They are sacrificing their time, their money, sometimes their family time this is their livelihood. It's much more than just a sign or a brick and mortar or a chamber membership or anything like that. So when I had the opportunity to take the chamber job, I felt very passionate about it. And that's why, because I think if I could have been there to advocate for my dad's business or, at that time, I don't know if it would have made the difference or not. I'm sure that there were a lot of factors involved, but now I'm in the position where I can really advocate for and support and connect small businesses. So that's part of my story and why I'm so passionate about what I do in the chamber and for small business and the community.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good segue into the idea that if you, businesses and entrepreneurs have formation stories that push them to that next spot. I mean, we're kind of going here, right?
Yeah.
Mine was my grandfather. My grandfather, he always pushed his grandkids. He was that golden generation, believe in your dreams, American exceptionalism. That was my grandfather, right? He was an optometrist, but he also served in World War II. And so he came with this extra level of, you have no clue how privileged you are to live in these United States, to own a business and to hire employees and do these things. And of course, I'm 10 years old, 12 years old. Finally, the last couple years of his life, I was 15, 16. You can kind of think for yourself now, and you kind of, individuation is setting in, in your personality and how you operate and stuff. And in those last 2 years, I really feel I cherished his pushing, towards, and at the time, I didn't want to be a business owner at the time. I just knew I had that adventurous spirit. And so I started playing classical guitar. And your son Tanner's a classical guitar. That's how we connected.
That's right.
Tanner was, he would finger pick, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know another. And he was in my youth group at the time, and it was just like a really cool connector. But that classical guitar, he drove in me the work ethic to like practice. Of course, I was OCD, so I practiced like 6 hours a day because I wanted to be perfect. But it was all because of that, And then my other grandfather was a business owner as well, of a string of barbershops in Las Cruces. And so having that in my family, I think it was just in me, to wanting to do that.
It's
I know
it's kind of interesting
you have
to me
some of that too,
Jamie. I think it's interesting because you do have an entrepreneurial spirit, but the kind of the redirection of that in your life because of that story,
right?
Like that's huge, and wow, what an experience!
That's why I get so sad when I see some of our chamber members have to close their doors. Yes. I mean, I think I take it very personally. Yeah. Like, could I have done more to? Right. And I realize that they have a lot of other things going on, and we're the chamber, and there's only so much we can do. But then I always think, should I have shared their post more? Should I have, done more to help and to connect them to the resources that are here and that are here to support small business?
Well, and I think that's really, one of the things that I feel like small business needs so much is when people go into small business, they have this desire to do something with their skill set and the gifts that they've been given, right? And yet oftentimes they don't go in it with the mindset of they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
Right. And or that personally they're going to have certain things that are hiccups or downfalls or weaknesses that they have to work through, or they have to find a way to strengthen, right? And I think, oftentimes many people aren't like wonderful networkers. That's not maybe their gifting, or they're not great salespeople or something like that, right? And so if that's not naturally their place, I think the conversation has to be had. Like, how do you deal with that?
Right.
How do you help yourself learn some of these things that you don't know? How do you make the right connections with people? If you're not naturally a networker, how do you get yourself in that space so that you can still at least have those opportunities to grow or even sustain, right? Because if you're not growing, technically you're kind of going downhill because the economy and prices are going up. So if you're not growing, that stalemate is a downhill swing.
Well, if you're not a natural networker, at least educate yourself on what's out there, what different marketing platforms there are. At the Chamber, we have a lot of networking events, but they're at all levels. So we have some big networking events that can be very overwhelming and intimidating if you're kind of an introvert. You're not used to walking up to somebody, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, here's my business card." Those can be really intimidating. But then we have all these other smaller ones that are like business builder workshops or lunch and learns or things like that are a much smaller group of people. And we always allow time at these workshops for some networking in the beginning. And we're talking groups of maybe 10 or 12. So when that's much less intimidating than walking into a business after hours with 120 people.
Right. And I think too, even with those, I would encourage people that if you feel like you're on the outside looking in, you'll be shocked at, everyone's internal speak is freaking out. So you're really not alone.
Right.
And you are in a space where everyone is willing to learn.
Right.
In fact, at the Farmington Chamber, I've never gone into a conversation where everyone's flexing socially. It just doesn't happen. You think it's going to happen, or you think of your worst high school nightmare or college nightmare.
Steven's going back to his
like that. And maybe it's because maybe that's the value of our community too.
I think so.
In San Juan County, for those who are watching, it's kind of an old oil field town trying to transition, into new spaces. There's the good old boy side for sure. That's there. Yeah. But it doesn't mean it's not down to earth. I mean, everyone, even our last focus on Farmington, tons of people, tons of participation. But everyone's kind of awkward together.
Right.
And you kind of slip into a conversation with your coffee. "Hi, my name's Steven. What's your name?" And you're going to have a cold open sometimes. Yeah. But if you can't do that, maybe invite someone that you do know. Say, "Hey, can I tag along? I've been wanting to go." Sure. And bring those people along. It really isn't that bad. After you go to one, then that arm, it kind of just drops whatever shields you brought with you.
Right.
And then, it is wild how many connections you can make at a simple networking event.
Right.
Where you go and you do that. So,
well, I mean, just in the sense of this, like if you were to start a business new today, one of the things I would recommend you do is actually go join your Chamber of Commerce beforehand.
Yes, absolutely.
Because the thing that you win with, that is if you did that, say 6 months before you started the business, and then you just went out and you found the people that you were experts in the areas that you would need help. So maybe you need some legal expertise, maybe you need some accounting expertise, you need some marketing expertise, you need some building expertise, and so forth. You find all these people, and then you find some other people that are maybe in the same arena, and then you start asking them just a few questions. Hey, what kind of budget am I looking at for accounting needs? What kind of budget am I looking at for marketing needs? Can you just give me a shot from the hip? I mean, just that alone could make or break your business from before you ever started. Because if you're going into with a mindset that has a complete naivety to any kind of actual expenses that you're going to have.
And most people really like to be asked. I think people like to share their knowledge.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a sense of, well, I don't want to, they're not going to want to share their knowledge with me because maybe they, want to keep it.
It's the total opposite.
Yeah, no, people like to be asked. They like to be asked to be a mentor, and they like to share their knowledge. Yeah. We all want a successful business community here. I have yet to meet in my almost 6 years as a chamber director, somebody that said, no, I want all the businesses here to fail.
Right.
Why would you? I mean, that's what makes this a great place to live. We want our children to, grow up here and maybe go off to college somewhere, but we want them to come back and we want, to be here. And so we don't want our best resource, which is our young adults, leaving the area. We want them to stay and open businesses and be here and support the community.
Even what happened with the recent plausible acquisition of a local media company, actually our competitors had the resources to buy an old legacy media company. I'll just say the newspaper, and a newspaper that was purchased from an outside company, and quite frankly, didn't get Farmington. Now we have a local media company, again, who are our competitors, but hearing them jump into a much needed space to restore local newspaper. As soon as the old newspaper was bought out by a global company, it's just like, well, here we go again, small town just being forgotten. And it was slowly turning that way. Just spawned this whole regionally, I would even say Four Corners going, awesome.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, we win out of that. Yeah. Why? Because we get to retain those dollars and letting them stay here. And better yet, we get all local writers, local photographers, local printing.
Right, all
statewide,
staying here. Right.
Statewide at least, but still staying here in New Mexico and staying locally so that everyone wins. Everyone wins even if you're watching this and you're in a small community, there's probably enough work for everybody. Celebrate your local community. Let go support your local chamber and figure out how you can get involved. If someone is wanting to, because most likely people tap in because they're struggling. Okay, let's say other chamber leadership are listening.
Okay.
What are some of those big ideas that you can say, this is really going to help your chamber be more successful than maybe it is? Maybe they're struggling. Maybe they are in a hard, good old boy town and nothing is moving. The chamber seems to be dying and there's not a lot of fervor. What would you tell that person? And maybe it was Jamie 6 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a new position, right? Your predecessor did a great job. So you walked into a really great situation and made it even greater and better and brought a sense of community. And so what if someone is watching and they're like, man, I just don't know how to make change. What would you tell that person?
So first of all, make sure, all chambers, for the majority of chambers, are 501c6 organizations. We're nonprofits. We have a board of directors. Make sure your board is behind you and make sure you have a functional board as opposed to a dysfunctional board. Your board of directors, they've got to have your back and support you. They're your ambassadors out there in the community. Make sure your board is healthy. And if they're not, then either bring in a mediator or a facilitator or find a board development class. We actually happen to have one here in Farmington called Board Basics. Make sure your board is healthy.
What are some of those KPIs or signals that you could say, okay, that's lacks some health?
Well, if they're trying to micromanage, my board is oversight, board is governance and oversight. Board is not day-to-day operation of the organization. That's my job. That's why they hired a CEO. Yeah. So if your board is constantly like, well, what's going on with this employee or what's going on with that or that's not governance. That's not oversight. Making sure that your board is functional. Also, make sure you're not siloed. And we have had a tradition of that in the past here. But I'm glad to say that, I feel like we've kind of overcome that. And what I mean by that is we have economic development, so Four Corners Economic Development, and we have the City of Farmington Economic Development, and we have the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and we have the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, and we are all working together. We are all want the same goals. So if the Small Business Development Center comes to me and says, hey, we're doing this workshop, will you help to share it? Absolutely. We just recently did a business after hours with Four Corners Economic Development. because it strengthens everybody if it can show how we're all communicating. Right. Yeah. So it's not Jamie not wanting to share information with anybody. I absolutely want to share information with everybody. I want to see everybody succeed, because then we all succeed. Yep. And then I think for the chambers, the focus on Farmington coffees is what we call them here. They are a monthly coffee networking thing that is open to anybody in the community, and they're free every single month. And we move them around to different locations, not necessarily chamber members. Those have been a game changer, I think, for getting people connected to the community that are new here, that are trying to meet people, that are trying to figure out what's going on in the community. So, it's like I welcome anybody to these. It's always going to be free coffee. And excuse me, I get choked up. No, it's always going to be free coffee. I get so emotional about my coffee.
She gets emotional about coffee. We've had this discussion earlier.
Oh my gosh, I love coffee. Anyway, that helps people feel a part of something and feel connected. And then, so I stand up and I say, I'm Jamie Church. This is what I do. But then it's really about everybody who's there. And I give people the opportunity to share what they've got going on. I would say any chamber in the United States could do those coffees. Yeah. And you don't have to make them chamber specific. Let all the businesses come to them, because they're going to go wow, there's a lot going on here. I want to get connected with this organization.
And that's really a good marketing ploy. And in our world, we call it freemium services. Oh, okay. And so a freemium service essentially gives real world added value. So in this case, networking, coffee, and a peek into what the chamber's networking can do for you,
right?
For free, no obligation, literally nothing you have to do.
And what does it hurt? Like if it's not a chamber member and you go take something to their business, all that does is advocate for the community. What's beautiful about this, and you keep coming back to it, and I think this is really neat. It's that age-old saying, all a rising tide raises all boats, right? All boats. And that mentality is not a scarcity mentality. It's the difference, right?
Right.
And when a business owner goes into a business decision in a scarcity mentality, there's an idea that there's only so much work that can be done. And so there's only so much of the piece of pie. So I have to not like my competitor or something like that.
Right.
Because of that. Well, no, there's actually a lot of niches that you can fill that your competitor may not fill.
Right.
And you mentioned our competitor earlier. Well, we really, in a lot of ways, we don't compete because we're in different lanes on the same highway. So we might have some crossover.
We'll work together.
And
we will even actually work together.
And it doesn't hurt anything.
That
it just
supports
makes it better.
Everybody. Yeah. And I use the example of, some of our members are in trades, so maybe they're plumbers or electricians.
Absolutely.
There's not a single plumber or an electrician that could handle all the clients in business in San Juan County. We have to have competition. Competition helps everybody rise up. It makes you better. Yeah, it makes everybody better, especially if we'll share or learn from each other. It's part of a healthy community. And so in 2019, when I came on board, one of the first things we did was we looked at our tagline. You guys know about marketing. We looked at our logo. We looked at our tagline and went, okay, we need a revamp here. So our tagline became connecting commerce to community, because that is exactly what we do.
Such a good tagline.
Because commerce is dependent on community and vice versa. And so our role is to not only connect the businesses to each other, but the businesses to the nonprofit community, to our community at large, to our government, so everybody knows what's going on. And it helps avoid some of that. Well, this is what I do, and I'm not going to share it with you. Sure. I don't understand the point of that, because I'm only as successful as everybody else around me. I mean, that it's all about a team. We have a great team at the chamber. Our staff is great. Our board is great. Our chamber members. And it happens where we have chamber members that don't renew their memberships. I don't know why, but it does happen. And when I ask them why, they'll say, I was a chamber member for a year. I just didn't get anything out of it. And then I'll start to ask them questions. Did you come to one of our workshops? No. Did you follow our Facebook page? No. Did you come to any of our events? No. And so I start to say, well, I don't even know you. So how could your customers, how do we help you be successful when
Yeah.
We've never met you face to face.
It's like buying a pool and not swimming in it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, and
That's good.
it's classic.
Yeah,
You know, like
exactly.
people will do it all the time. You know, they
and then get rid of the pool.
Yeah, and then later on they fill it in because
I didn't do anything for me. Well, did you put your swimming trunks on?
Right. And we always say, look, we are not a marketing agency. That is not who we are. You are in that space. You do a great job. That's not what we are. We are a connector.
Yeah,
so we're connecting you to your potential clients and customers.
Yep.
We're connecting you to those resources. If you find out, wow, I need help with my business plan, I'm going to connect you with the SBDC to help you do that.
And that's another thing, right? Like a business owner knowing that there's people that genuinely are in a position to help. Mm-hmm. Because I know, Jamie, if we came to you and we were like, listen, we really need these connections, or do you have a connection to this company or that company or this person? Because we would like to go give them a proposal. We think we can help them. Mm-hmm. If we take that step of asking you,
right,
your genuine willingness to help is going to try to do that for
absolutely.
us. And see, that's what a lot of business owners, they sit in there and kind of wallow over the fact that something is not working the way they want to. And instead of taking just one genuine step of, hey, I need help. Right. You don't have a help because you didn't ask for it. Right. Like go ask people that are genuinely willing to help, to give you some help, because people want to
and
see
they're
people
out there.
succeed,
and
right?
these classes, so I mentioned the board basics, I mentioned the SBDC with the business builder workshops, and these things are free or extremely low cost. And so when we hear about these business, these new entrepreneurs or business people, it's like, go through the right process, meet with Carmen over at the SBDC, because they have a whole plan for you. This is going to help you be successful, and this isn't going to cost you a lot of money. So there are so many resources out there, but again, if they're not connected with us, then how are they going to know about those? It's hard to find information out. We all know there's information everywhere. And so sometimes people get overwhelmed, but that's what we're there to do. And we're also there to help you launch your business when you're a chamber member. One of the other changes I made was in 2019 with our ribbon cuttings. We have a group of red coat ambassadors. They're called the red coats because they wear red coats. And one of
literal
yes, very literal red coats.
Literal.
And one of the changes was that when you have to be a chamber member in order for us to do a ribbon cutting. And there's a reason for that, because we're going to invest in you with this ribbon cutting and sharing all your things on social media and connecting you and putting you in the business directory. But you need to invest with us too. I mean, our dues for a small business with 5 and under employees is $200 a year. So you break that down, divide it by 12 if you're a small business. And we do the ribbon cutting and we share all your information, and you're in our business directory and you're in the loop and you're at this event and that event and this event. And you get, a discount to the business expo, and you find out about the women's summit. I mean, it just goes on and on.
And then for salespeople, there's leads and referrals groups.
The leads and referrals group, all these things. So you invest with us, and then we're going to invest with you with the ribbon cutting. And that was one of the changes, was you have to be a chamber member.
Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer.
And it's, some people I think they're scared, it's going to be a lot of money. Well, talk with us. We want every business to be successful. And we know a lot of startups have a lot of expenses that they're hiring an accountant. They're getting maybe software, some kind of accounting software, staffing, insurance. We understand that. So we're there to make sure everybody is successful, and we'll work with businesses. But we won't know about you. And I think some people think I'm really annoying because
I don't know anyone that will think that.
I don't think
yeah, I think so. But they'll put something out there like, hey, so-and-so has this new business. And I'll respond back on social media, have them join the chamber, have them call us.
Yep.
And I tell people all the time, if you're a chamber member, I am your biggest advocate. I'm your biggest champion. But this is what we do. We're the Chamber of Commerce. We're a nonprofit. We advocate for you, but you need to be a member of the chamber. Yeah. Not that we're not going to, of course, want every business to succeed, but we do want you to invest in us. Yeah. So we'll invest in you.
And I mean,
awesome.
My goodness, anymore, $200 goes out the door so fast.
Yeah,
I know. Our printer just went out.
I literally spent $400 on a laser printer. I can't blink without $200 going out the door.
I know.
I swear.
I know it.
So we try to keep it reasonable. We have it tiered. We do so many events that are free. That we say doesn't matter if you're a chamber member or not. Come to this. I mean, we try to just broaden that connection as much as possible. But we also have bills to pay. We have staff. We have things that need to get done. And so we do have to say, okay, like I said, invest in us.
So Jamie, just kind of, maybe a success story that you could share with us about someone who maybe made the right choices. You saw they did a great job of networking. They maybe they didn't know anything. Coming in or something like that. I'd love to hear maybe something that you've experienced.
Story of transformation or something, a moving element. I know we just threw this at her.
I know.
But just something maybe that affected you in particular. And it doesn't always have to be about revenue or things like that. It's just something even subjective.
I think that I'll give an example. She's somebody that's on our board and somebody that I have watched with her business grow and thrive. And so I'm going to talk about the chili pod. So so I kept going over there, and this is when our chamber offices were downtown before we moved up to the college. And I kept hassling her. You should be a chamber member. You should be a chamber member. Started like, I'll never eat here unless you're a chamber member, which was a joke.
Which you would never do because you love the food so much.
Exactly. Anyway, so I was like, just become a chamber. So finally, they did. The chili pod did. And the reason that this particular chamber member stands out to me is that then COVID happened, and we all know what happened with restaurants, and the downtown renovation happened. So not only do you have COVID, you have basically all of Maine shut down for this beautiful renovation, which I love and I'm glad we did.
Just a rough time.
So this particular business owner with the chili pod really got all the education. She was able to take advantage of all the things that were offered during COVID to help businesses survive and thrive. She not only survived, she's now expanded. But what she does that I have noticed is she plays well with everybody. She is at every event I go to. She's at other people's events, supporting them. So our chamber banquet this year,
she supports other restaurants.
She understands that the way for all of us to succeed is to succeed together. So we did for our chamber banquet back in February, a sort of a newer type of meal. I called it the Taste of Farmington. And so we didn't just have one restaurant catering that. We had 4 different restaurants catering our chamber banquet. So we had the Chili Pod, and we had Clancy's, and then we had a new chamber member, Piochi Foods. And we also had some food from Los Hermanitos. And then we had some desserts from Tara over at Artifacts. My point being is that nobody was like, well, I want to be the only food. They all were so excited to do this together. And they all had to submit their menus to me so I could make sure there wasn't a lot of double up on things. They all loved it. And it just showed that when you can work together and highlight these great local restaurants, and we hope to do it again next year and even add more restaurants in. But that's just one example of a business that could have shut down during COVID and this Main Street, the renovation, the downtown renovation. But because she is so willing to just embrace everybody's business and she shares everything I put out there, whether it's about another restaurant or any other chamber member, she's sharing it. And I think that is part of what I'm saying about this whole connection. And so that's one example of many. I mean, we have a lot of chamber members that do amazing things. And some of our chamber members are some of the biggest employers in the county for base and coordinated health or, we are for the sole proprietor all the way up to some of these bigger businesses. We're trying to do the same for everybody.
Well, what I love about the Chili Pod story too is, they've expanded now into a second space that they, purchased,
which is awesome,
right?
And it's beautiful. What a beautiful.
And I like that she got her start at our chili and Oktoberfest because we have a chili cook-off, and she used to enter before she had a restaurant. She would enter and win, and several people said, you ought to open a restaurant.
Totally American success story, right? From the bottom up.
And it's cool to hear everyone's participation in her story. She hired us to do her marketing. And then we cravethechilipod.com plug. Yeah. Check it out. But she had done that during COVID, and just saw a massive throughput in getting people to her website efficiently and effectively, because we build mobile first websites.
Right.
Yep.
And so she wanted a mobile first website, and sure enough, the traffic is just insane just because of the ease of use. Really, you just need someone to make a phone call or order something online.
Right.
And then she's happy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And there's a lot of great restaurants, and don't get me wrong, because there are a lot of great restaurants, and there's a lot of great restaurants that are chamber members.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
That's one story of somebody who really because I was able to watch her from when she was cooking at the chili in October all the way to opening that first restaurant to expanding all these things. So I've been able to really watch that growth of this particular business.
Well,
so
one thing I noted when you were talking earlier, you said she got to take advantage of a lot of things that were happening in that COVID 2019 period. And that's another thing I think we discount in networking. People know things and are connected to things that you have no connection to.
right.
And so every time you make a connection to somebody else, you have the opportunity to learn something that you possibly have never even been connected to in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the cool thing about connections, is it's not just a connection between two people. It's a connection between that person and all of their connections and all of their knowledge.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so one connection is like infinitely more valuable than you can imagine.
Right.
It's exponential.
It's so exponential.
Right.
So exponential because Jamie's connections don't just represent her family. They represent everyone she's ever been connected to, all the history she's had with every person. Like, so you want to connect with people in so many ways because of that.
Right.
Like, and I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
But the funny thing is you talk with a person for 5-10 minutes, all of a sudden you find out something like, oh, there's a program that helps you with this. Mm-hmm. Well, I was just in need of that. Oh, there's this great new website that helps you do this, or this person is looking for a job and they're an HR specialist and I need an HR specialist. You just never know what that value of that connection can be for your business. And it is really unbelievable how great that can be.
Well, that's why we do ribbon cuttings.
Right. But I think sometimes the mentality is that when I go over to a thing is I'm trying to gain business from somebody else in that chamber. That can be a result.
Right.
But it's not the thing you're looking for.
Right.
Oftentimes it can be something that's so much more valuable to your business because you just found somebody that helps you take that next step or helps you meet the person that you needed to meet.
Right.
So that you get the opportunity with a bigger client or something. You just never know.
Which is almost like, I think we're coming down to is the ethic of chambers should be do unto others.
Yes, totally.
Because, I mean, if you don't look for what's in it for you, that will come in time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What can you give to others? And I know that sounds so like cheesy or...
It's so true.
It is so true, especially in the chamber world. I mean, chamber directors really they all love their community, or if they don't, they shouldn't be a chamber director. I mean, it is all about loving your community and wanting to see people thrive and connect and survive. And I have a friend who runs the North Houston Chamber of Commerce. Then I know that's a totally different dynamic than what I have here.
Oh, sure.
But again, he's not running. I mean, in these big cities, they have smaller chambers that are really focused on an area.
Right.
So he runs his experiences and challenges are going to be totally different than mine.
Absolutely.
In a community the size of, Farmington. But we also, I think all chambers as well can extend to other chambers. So one of the things that we try to do at least a couple times a year with our coffees is reach out to the Aztec Chamber, one of the other regional chambers, and say, hey, let's do a coffee in Aztec. Because I know it's called Focus on Farmington Coffee, but you have cool stuff going on there. Let's have a coffee there. And we've done 2 or 3 coffees in Aztec, and I need to do some in Bloomfield and Kirtland. So it's like, what are you celebrating in your community? And let us help you celebrate that as well. So again, it's not like, I'm not going to share this and I'm going to be siloed. I want all the surrounding. We're a regional economy, and I think we really found that out over the last few years.
Absolutely.
We are very regional. We live right on the Colorado state line, but business is traveling all day, every day between the 2 states. So we need to develop those regional relationships. And I think one of the best ways to do that is say, hey, we would love to do something in your area to help celebrate what you're doing. And, for the big picture with your community, and I think chambers hold the key to that because we are so connected. We know the businesses, we know the elected officials, we advocate, we go to our particular chamber, we go to Santa Fe every year during the legislative session. We're watching the issues that we think will affect small business, and that's what we're focusing on and we're advocating for. So, I mean, we've got a lot going on, but the bottom line is we really do want the business community to be successful, and we want things here so that people will stay and live here and feel that quality of life here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and you mentioned the connection, and that goes back to the ribbon cuttings. If you think about a ribbon cutting and we've got 25 red coats that come in for the ribbon cutting, that's not 25 red coats. Every red coat has family, has neighbors, has people they come from all different kind of businesses.
Right.
They have all the people they're working with. They have people they go to church with. They might be in a civic organization. So they go to the ribbon cutting and say, hey, I just found out about this company. And they tell all these people. On the other side of that, you need to make sure that you're, doing business right, because we talked about that actually before going on air. Reviews can be really, they can either build you up or they can be disastrous. Yeah. So, but the red coats, that's why we do those ribbon cuttings, because it's just that effect of that going out from your business to the red coats to all of their network and their relationships. Yeah. So that's why we do them.
That's really good. Yeah. So whenever I wrap up episodes, I give someone the last word to say something that you would have told younger Jamie for your personal development, what the things that got you here. What would you tell that young person listening that you wish maybe you would have heard when you were younger, or maybe something you did here and it changed your life and made you into the Jamie?
And you can't say join a Chamber of Commerce. We know that's your part, but you have to give a different advice for that.
I think it's to be honest in your relationships and to not be afraid when you mess up. I think especially when we're younger, we're so afraid of doing the wrong thing that we almost get paralyzed. Yeah. And again, I just never thought I would be involved in the business community because I was so scared because I had seen what had happened to my family with my dad's business. But yet I felt this drive to help support business. And so instead of being afraid and thinking, well, I don't know about that whole imposter syndrome thing. It's like, just be honest, reach out to the people to be a mentor. Don't be afraid to try new things. You just never know what could be happening. You take on something big, like the Women's Summit, and watch and see how that can grow. And, don't be afraid. If networking isn't your thing and you're socially more of an introvert, don't be afraid to reach out just on a one-on-one basis too and start to build that network that way. Because if you don't do that, nobody's going to know who you are or what you do. And that person could just be the connection to something else. So that was more than the last word. That was like a lot of last words.
No, that was perfect.
I've been very blessed in my life to have some amazing role models. My grandmother, my mother, people that believed in me. And so I think I've always sort of had this sort of self-confidence about what I do. But I have messed up almost daily and done things wrong, said the wrong thing, maybe missteps. But I think trying to be honest with those and learn from those mistakes and, build your team, support your team of people around you and appreciate them.
Yeah, and you've been blessed with a great family.
Yeah, I have a good family. And cute grandkids too.
Well, Jamie, thank you so much for coming in and joining us today. And we sure had a good time.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's fun. I always like to talk.
Awesome. And we'll see everyone next time.
All right. Take care.
Yay. That was good.
So you're great.